Okay, so this is not the norm, just an option that a few people seem to be choosing to pursue. But it is an interesting topic, especially on a Friday. So let's delve into this. Negin Farsad is a comedian in New York City, and she joins us now from our New York studio. Negin, thanks so much for being on the show. Let me just start by asking you your reaction when you first heard about this story.
My reaction when I first heard about this story was sort of like, why is this a story? Don't we remember that whole Diablo Cody thing? She was a screenwriter, she was a journalist, she was a stripper, all rolled into one sassy package. And we got over it as a country. In fact, we gave her accolades for her work, and then we moved on. So I was kind of surprised that this was a story at all.
I know, I think it's a good point.
That was my first reaction.
This is a free country, and we're not talking about, a Catholic schoolgirl teacher. We're talking about a journalist working in an industry that, let's be honest, doesn't always pay top notch, and people need to pay their bills. So why do you think?
Absolutely, and it's not the first time either. I mean, there's been online, you can look and find many examples of journalists who have also done stripping. In fact, there was a journalist from The Guardian who, when the strip club found out that she was a journalist, they decided to fire her because they didn't want a stripper doing a tawdry profession such as journalism and on the side. So, I mean, it cuts both ways.
That's so interesting. And it's true. I mean, stripping is not prostitution. There are plenty of high-class strip clubs out there, especially in New York, for example. Do you think, Negin, we're going to get to a time where stripping is actually viewed as what it is, which is dancing, as opposed to always having it connected to sex and prostitution?
The more journalists and academics go into stripping, I think the better it's going to be for stripping's reputation. Because the way and let's not forget, Trester's also a professor at the University of Houston. So the more people like her are in the field, I think the better it is for how that field is going to be seen. I mean, I would join their ranks, but I don't think comedian is going to do anything to improve their reputation.
Let me ask you this, and I guess if there is a serious angle about this story, it's the economy. It's the fact that there's a lot of jobs that you can get, even with a great degree, a master's degree, a PhD even, that aren't going to pay you what you need to sort of get all those bills paid, especially if you're paying student loans. There's a story about an Arizona State student. She was awarded a $32,000 scholarship, and apparently she was making videos and even flashed her student ID on the camera to prove that she was over the age of 18. And there was talk that she might lose that scholarship. Now, she didn't end up losing it, but a whole lot of people thought she should have. Let's talk about the economic aspect of this.
No, I mean, it's actually really sad. I mean, you can say the same for so many different professions. Even some teachers out there can't make enough money in a year to make ends meet. I mean, this is, and you led with this, journalism has one of the worst problems. Newspapers are closing, even 24-hour news channels are consolidating some positions and laying people off. It's just hard out there for a journalist. And so money that used to go into hardcore journalism, researching the facts, putting people on the ground, is now going into pasties, and that's just the sad economic reality. And I feel like there was a time when we actually treasured these kinds of professions and paid them a fair wage, and we're not doing that anymore.
I think that's a really good point. Let's talk about sort of where some of these stories took place. When we talk about the Houston Chronicle reporter, Houston, this is a pretty prestigious newspaper. Texas, of course, most of the girls I know from Texas, had debutante balls. And Texas is not New York City, even Houston. It's not LA. Do you think, it depends on which part of the country you live in, how this profession will be viewed?
Yeah, because I definitely think if the story was coming out of New York, it would get maybe a yawn followed by a cough. But in Houston, I think there's still a little bit of that aspect of the ladies who lunch and the society folk who don't look kindly upon that profession. But Houston also has a really diverse population. It's the fourth largest city in the country, and also they have an openly lesbian mayor. That's not very common. So I think even for Houston, the story kind of for a lot of people in Houston was a non-starter.
So what do you think? I mean, where should the line be drawn? Obviously, certain professions and businesses have their rules about working any other jobs. I asked my boss, just for the heck of it, what he would do if he found out, one of us was stripping on the side, and he said it would be fine if you were doing it for charity. You just can't be earning money because that's, in the handbook. What do you think? I mean, where should these lines be drawn as far as what's acceptable?
I mean, you're talking to a comedian. I don't think there should be very many lines, and I think, look, Sarah Tressler is hot. It would have been wrong for her not to strip, okay? I'm not a lesbian, but I might turn for Sarah Tressler, all right? That's all I'm saying here. Sorry, ladies, that's right, I'm not a lesbian, okay? Don't line up just yet. But I mean, and what's the harm? Literally, she's just dancing. There might be a pole involved. Who cares? I definitely think the line shouldn't be drawn there. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, certainly, and the story that we did, the girl owned her own house. I mean, that you're not going to be able to do that on a journalist salary in a lot of big cities. Appreciate you being on the show. You did a great job. Negin Farsad, come back and see us again.
Thanks.